We've been watching the 1985 classic crime thriller To Live and Die in LA. This is directed by William Friedkin. It stars William Petersen, Willem Dafoe, and John Pankow, amongst others. Very good film. Dave, did you enjoy it?
I did very much so. I thought I'd just mention at the beginning, I think this is one of them films where there's a lot of twists and turns and it subverts. So if you haven't seen the film, go and watch it before you listen to us talk about it if you do want to see it, because it is a bit of a easily spoiled film, and we are just going to be talking about the plot. But yes, apart from that, yeah, brilliant film. Very good, very gritty, very subversive, feels very much like 70s cinema, but also a very 80s film, but just in its style, I think. It feels 80s, but thematically it's far away from that, you know. It's very much what Lethal Weapon should have been.
You really are crazy.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It is completely subversive in that it totally subverts audience expectations of this kind of movie. It's very intense. Like you said, it feels like a 70s film more than an 80s film. It's like a 70s film with 80s clothes on, really.
Yes.
I only seen this film for the first time fairly recently, as in within the last year or so. Obviously, we've done a rewatch to talk about it on the pod today. It's one of those I hadn't got round to, but I always wanted to. It was like, I've got to get hold of that. I've got to see what all the fuss is about. And I totally, thoroughly enjoyed it. It was everything you want from a great cop thriller, from an action film. You know, it's all in there. But like you said, it's completely subversive because there's stuff in there and you just makes your jaw drop and go,
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, you know, what you said about the 80s is on the nose as well. It's, I mean, with Wang Chung doing the soundtrack there, it doesn't get much more 80s than that.
All those synth kind of harmonies kind of lasering across the top of the film, really.
Yeah.
And you're like, ooh. Yeah, that's something.
It is very cool, isn't it?
It is. It's almost, I felt like, because it's very synth and, you know, that 80s thing, but it's almost like a church organ or something.
Right.
It kind of layers on top of it. It's quite ominous, isn't it?
Sure.
Over the top of it. And it's quite interesting in the way it falls into place.
Yeah.
And, you know, talking about 80s style, the look of the film is just, it's so interesting because you're kind of mixing, it is Miami Vice in that kind of, the clothes and the look of it, and it's LA, so you got the great setting anyway.
Yeah.
But with all those kind of sunsets and the way that the oranges fall across the picture, it's almost like a Western.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
That's really cool. But then you also get, like, in the night time, you get all those neon signs and stuff like that, and the dark lighting inside and stuff, and the colours. It's very interesting to look at.
William Petersen plays Richard Chance. He is a Secret Service agent, and he is chasing down a bunch of counterfeiters that are making money, literally making their own notes. They are led by Willem Dafoe, who is like, his character is quite interesting in it because he's kind of like an artist as well. He's like a painter and he does all this stuff, and hence he's very good at replicating dollar bills and, you know. But, you know, these guys aren't just making money, are they? They're really quite a nasty bunch, really nasty criminals. Like with like with a lot of people in William Friedkin films, they are, you know, he doesn't pull any punches, and these guys are a bit of a bunch of bastards, really. So Petersen's partner right at the start, he gets offed. And therefore, there's the motivation for the character that he basically gets worked up into a frenzy where he will stop at nothing to get these guys, so much so that he becomes a criminal himself, really, in terms of trying to catch them. You get to that point in the film where, you know, to do the famous car chase on the freeway, and they ended up getting chased down by the FBI because they've basically wittingly got involved in a sting operation, and they're being treated as if they're the thieves. So it completely turns on its head. You know, the pursuer becomes the pursued. You know, by that point in the film, you're just thinking, what is going on here? This is getting crazy. this is getting crazy.
Me too. Yeah.
And
it's crazy.
It is crazy because it's such an intense film. The pace does not stop. You know, it's not far into it, and you've got that little bit in the airport, and you got John Turturro in there, and Peterson's chasing down Turturro in the airport.
And even at the beginning of that scene, because when he's at the counter, you know, just as he gets there, the bad guy, and there's that tension before, you know, is he going to get him? Is he going to catch him? You know, is it the right guy or whatever? And then it starts to chase. It's like,
yeah. As soon as he starts to run, that's my guy.
Yeah.
You know. And I think it's worth mentioning as well that the airports, it was LAX, I think, or one of those LA airports, and they said, don't let him run on the Skyway like that again, because he did that sprint across the Skyway, you know. And I think they were like, yeah, no running on the Skyway. Yeah, run on the Skyway again. It looked really cool. And then he did it, and they made sure they got it in that one take. And then obviously they just said, oh, sorry, I don't think he heard you. But that's such a cool bit in the movie. Just the way he's running, he's belting it, he's absolutely, he's fast as hell, like, you know, and it's like, but yeah, it's incredible. And, you know, William Petersen, he did 2 amazing films around this period. He did this one, and then he did Manhunter, which we also watched not long ago, the Michael Mann film, which was the original version of Red Dragon, the Thomas Harris novel featuring Dr. Hannibal Lecter. Obviously, in that film, he was played by Brian Cox, not Anthony Hopkins. But Petersen, going back to him in these 2 films, you know, the most super cool police guy you could have in a movie in the 80s. A lot of people know Manhunter, and I think they appreciate it, and he's kind of famous for it. But To Live and Die in LA is a little bit lesser known and was possibly not as successful.
I think that the interesting thing with Petersen is that
Gil Grissom.
I know him very well from CSI, is Grisham, yeah. But I've not really seen him in anything else until recently.
He was in Young Guns 2. He played Pat Garrett. He's a little bit younger there as well. You know, it's like sort of early 90s, I think. But no, yeah, you're right. He's known for CSI, probably by most people. But he's a little bit older then. You know, he's like, you know, in his 50s and.
Oh, that's sanitary. Mustard.
He's like the head guy, isn't he? And he doesn't move very fast. Whereas in this film, he's like a whippet. Right, he never stops. He's running everywhere. He's chasing people in cars. He's banging the steering wheel and chasing people the wrong way up the freeway. And it's just like, this guy he's hungry. You can tell as an actor, he was really hungry for this kind of role. And it comes across really well.
It's just interesting, isn't it? Because you kind of think, oh, shame he didn't do more, because the 2 films, he's impressed me loads.
Oh yeah, me too.
Know, and he's got all the characteristics of a leading man. And but talking of the car chase, I mean, that is something else, isn't it? In this, it's
well, I always thought, because it's William Friedkin, and the car chase in The French Connection was so famous. Because they, you know, again, they did some naughty stuff there. They didn't get permissions. They just went for it. Yeah. You know, people were nearly seriously injured on that shoot, which is obviously very naughty, but that's the way he did it then. But it's like Friedkin trying to outdo himself. You know, what can we do that's crazier than The French Connection, where a car is chasing a train? Let's drive a car the wrong way up the freeway against oncoming traffic. So he's literally like, ah.
Well, apparently he said to the stunt coordinator, if you can make a car chase better than The French Connection, it's in the film, or else I'll cut it.
Wow. So, and it is a great car chase. I mean, the whole piece goes on for 15 minutes from start to end.
Must do, yeah.
And it does not let up, and it gets more intense, and you're just like, whoa.
All through them alleyways and side streets.
And they are gunning
lorries coming out, and it's mental.
It is. And you keep thinking they're gonna get murked at some point here. You don't think they're going to escape from it, you know, because it's so intense. And every corner they turn around, there's another guy coming out with a machine gun and trying to pop them off and stuff.
And as we mentioned last week in the Friends of Eddie Coyle discussion, the physicality.
Yeah.
That these are actual cars doing this crazy shit. It's so fun.
Burning rubber, screeching tires, smashing glass. You got to love it.
Just can't beat it.
No, you can't. These stunt drivers were excellent. They were really cool. But yeah, a really cool film, a really cool movie. At the time, it was criticized, I think, because it didn't have many known stars in it. Like William Petersen was an unknown at the time. John Turturro hadn't really done much at the time, but these are people that have gone on to become quite notable figures afterwards. Willem Dafoe as well. It was one of his earliest movies. Nobody really knew him. He is brilliant. He's always brilliant. I really love Willem Dafoe, and it's nice when he plays a bad guy as well, because he can play a good guy, and you always get behind it. But he's got something about him that's very good as a bad guy.
Yeah, and I love the film because it's just like those neo-noir films in the 70s, which is very much what it's like thematically. It's very fatalistic. It's, this ain't going to be happy for anyone. Everyone's dying left, right, and centre. The informant, who he sleeps with and has a relationship with, played by Deborah Feuer, it's fascinating because he treats her like shit.
Yeah.
He's a bastard to her.
He is, yeah.
And that's not the behaviour of your protagonist,
no.
Good guy, in most films. So it's very subversive and different in that way,
It's almost more sort of honest, more realistic, that...
Yeah, it's real.
This kind of character who is only concerned with his obsession, and his obsession in this case is catching his man. Completely realistic. Again, like a new wave film.
But fantastic. Well worth watching.
And top movie, top crime movie. Really cool. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider supporting us at buymeacoffee.com or join us on Patreon. All links below.